Hello students, today we will be going over 6.1, Introduction to Fractions, Decimals, and Percents. Our objective, I can explain the relationship between fractions and decimals, and might I add percent. Next part. Okay, number 1 says to round to the nearest tenth. So our tenth position says round to the indicated value. Here we go. So our nearest tenth, so right here is tenth. So we look at the number to the right of that. Now it's going to be a 7. And remember, if it's 5 or more, let it soar. In other words, we're going to make it go up 1. If it's 4 or less, you let it rest. Okay? Say that with me. 5 or more, let it soar. 4 or less, let it rest. Okay? So this is 5 or more, so we're going to change that to 12.6. And that's rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay? Now it says round to the nearest hundredth. Right here is the hundredth. So we go 1 to the right of that, and we say, is that 5 or more? No. So we don't let it soar, we let it rest, just like it is without adding anything on. Okay? Round to the nearest whole number. Right here is the nearest whole number. So we look at 1 to the right. Is that 5 or more? It is. So we're going to let it soar, and we're going to add 1 to 34. And there's round to the nearest whole number. The next one is round to the nearest thousandths. Okay, so we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths right there. So again, we look at the number that's 1 to the right of that, and it's 5. Since it's 5 or more, we're going to let it soar. So it's 5.979 to the nearest thousandth. Okay. Now, the rest you can do for homework. I'm going to do a couple down at the bottom, or we can pause the video and you can work a little bit on those other ones. Okay, shade the given decimal in each grid. Write the fraction equivalent in simplest form on the line. Okay, so right here is 0.27. And how much of that is a grid if it is 10 by 10? It's 10 to this side, 10 this side. So there's 100 squares in there. And 0.27 in fraction form, let's see, can you see that bottom part there? In fraction form is going to be 27, and I'll just write it over here. 27 out of 100. And I don't think that reduces any more than that. So we're going to shade in 27 squares. So you're going to go ahead and shade all this in. There's 20. And then I'm going to shade up to 7 here. And that's how you do that part. Okay? So the fraction right there is going to be 27 out of 100. That's what you're going to write at the bottom over there. Okay? Hopefully you can see that okay. Next, 0.35 is not on here, but I'm going to let you do 2, 3, and 4 on your own, making sure you write the fraction underneath down here. Okay? So I'm going to go on to page 2, and there's another one that's shading, and it's in fraction form, and it says, shade the fractional in each grid. Write the fraction as a decimal and as a percent. So I'm going to let you do 5, and I'm going to jump to number 6. So know that this is the second one on page 2, 1/4. Now I'm going to change that to hundredths, and I say 1/4 is how many out of 100? Well, we know 4 times 25 is 100, so we're going to take 1 times 25, and you get 25 out of 100. That's where the term quarter comes from. You know how quarter is 1/4 of a dollar? That's where it comes from. Okay, so we're gonna shade 25 squares. And there you have 25. So the decimal is 0.25. And the percent is, let's see, can you see that okay? Let me write it down over here. Is 25%. Okay. Next, number 7 is 1/10. I'm not going to draw another 10 by 10. I'll just use it on this square, but I'll do it in a different color. So 1/10 is how many out of 100? Well, we know 10 times 10 is 100. So we multiply this by 10, and it's 10 out of 100. So out of 100 squares, you're going to shade 10 of them, and that will be 1/10. So 1/10 in decimal form is going to be 0.1. And we're going to put 10% because it'll be this number right here for percent. So I'm going to put 10%, and that in decimal form is 0.1. And I'll put 0.1 right there. Okay. Okay. So that's how you do those kind. Hopefully you can see that okay. Pause it if we need to. So again, once you get it out of 100, that's your percent. Then your percent has your decimal right here. You move it 2 places to the left, and that becomes your decimal. So right there, 0.1, and then that's 10%. Hopefully that should be a review from stuff that you've already done. Now, on to the other part at the bottom. It says use long division to show how to convert each fraction to a decimal. Okay, so 1/2 is 1/2. So we take the bottom number on the outside into the top number. 2 goes into 10 5 times. And there's 0 left over. Okay. So there's your decimal, 0.5. That is one you should probably memorize. And what percent is it? 50%. Do they have you write that as well? Nope, just a decimal, so we're saying 0.5. But it's good to know the percent. All right, so think of it as the fraction and then it falling over. So think of it as falling over to the right. The one on the bottom goes on the outside, and then on the inside is 1. This is where you get a decimal. Okay, 4 doesn't go into 1. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. 4 goes into 20 5 times. Oh, I forgot to move up the decimal. Okay, so wherever the decimal is, we move it up there. So this is 0.25. Also, you should probably memorize that that is 25%. Okay, so here's your answer, but I would always keep that one in mind as well. Okay. All right, you can finish the rest of this, students. You rock.